AITA for smiling when my wife mocked me because I knew she was cheating? My name is Jacob. I'm 36, and until last spring, I thought the most embarrassing thing about my life was the half-finished deck project sitting behind my townhouse and annoying my neighbors every time it rained. I lived on the suburban edge of Columbus, Ohio, in one of those two-story townhouses where the garages all face each other and everyone pretends not to notice when a couple argues with the kitchen window cracked. I worked operations for a regional logistics company, the kind of job where your phone rings during dinner and nobody asks whether you're off the clock. I'd been married to Marissa for 9 years. She taught elementary school, made incredible lemon bars, and had a way of making me feel like I was either her safe place or her backup plan, depending on who else was in the room. For most of our marriage, I told myself Marissa's little comments were just her sense of humor. If I mispronounced a wine name, she would laugh and say, "This is why I handle reservations." If I wore a shirt she didn't like, she would tug the sleeve and say, "He tries, everybody." People laughed because she smiled when she said it. I laughed too, because not laughing made me look sensitive. That was the trap. If I reacted, I was insecure. If I stayed quiet, the joke became part of the room. Around January, the jokes changed. They got sharper, as if she had stopped checking whether they left marks. At a school fundraiser, while I was carrying a tray of bottled water from our car into the cafeteria, she said to a group of teachers, "Jacob is very dependable," which is a nice way to say predictable. A few people laughed politely. I shifted the water against my hip and smiled as if I hadn't heard it. Then she touched Julian's arm, light and familiar, as if he were the one person there who really understood the joke. Julian had been introduced to me as a curriculum consultant helping her district with leadership development. He was 39, polished in a way that looked casual but clearly wasn't. He wore expensive sneakers with suits, smelled like cedar cologne, and had the relaxed confidence of someone who had never been asked to move a couch. Marissa said he was mentoring her because she wanted to move into administration. "Don't be weird about him," she told me one night while she packed a tote bag for a district workshop. "He's helping me think bigger." I didn't say anything. I said, "You didn't have to. You get that face." "What face?" "The face where you act supportive but secretly want me to stay small." I remember standing in our kitchen, holding a dish towel, staring at the little chip in the tile by the fridge. I wanted to say that I had worked overtime for years so she could finish her master's program without taking on extra debt. I wanted to remind her that I had gone to every fundraiser, every staff party, every awkward dinner where I knew nobody except her. Instead, I folded the towel and put it on the counter. "I want you to do what makes you happy," I said. She gave me a tired smile. That's such a Jacob answer. Before Julian, Marissa used to leave her phone anywhere, the kitchen island, a couch cushion, or the bathroom counter. Then it started staying face down. She changed her passcode after 9 years of using our old house number. She started going to committee meetings on Friday nights, even though she used to complain that teachers were never paid enough to attend anything after 4 p.m. Her gym bag sat untouched in the hallway, but she came home smelling like hotel soap. I noticed all of it. I also explained all of it away, because explaining was easier than knowing. My sister Tara noticed before I was ready to admit anything. Tara was 34, blunt enough to make waiters nervous, and protective in a way that felt comforting only after it stopped irritating me. At my mom's birthday lunch, Marissa spent most of the meal texting under the table. We were at a brunch place near Westerville that served pancakes the size of hubcaps. My mom, Denise, had worn her church pearls and kept trying to get everyone to try the cinnamon butter. Marissa nodded at the right times, but barely looked up from her phone. When Marissa went to the restroom, Tara leaned toward me. "You know she talks to you as if you were a substitute teacher she doesn't respect, right?" I glanced toward the restroom hallway. "Don't start." "I'm not starting anything," Tara said. "I think something already started, and you're pretending it didn't." My mom heard that and looked down at her coffee. She had spent 27 years married to my father before finally leaving, and her instinct was still to smooth every sharp edge in the room. "Tara," she said softly. "What?" Tara said. "We're all watching it." I got defensive because the truth landed too close. Marissa has been stressed. The school stuff has been a lot. Tara looked at me for a long second. "Okay, keep making excuses. Just don't expect me to clap for them." On the drive home, Marissa complained that Tara was rude. "She barely said 2 words to you." I said, She has a tone. She's my sister. She's had a tone since 1998. Marissa turned her phone over in her lap. You always defend her. I almost laughed, because I defended Marissa so often I had started doing it in my head before anyone said anything. But I let it go. That was one of my worst habits. I let things go and called it peace. The first real crack came from our home printer. The HOA had sent me an email about visible unfinished exterior modifications, which was their polite way of saying my half-built deck looked bad and Mrs. Donnelly 2 doors down had definitely complained again. I was in the laundry room printing permit forms, standing between the washer and the shelf where we kept bulk paper towels. The printer jammed. I opened the tray, pulled out a crumpled page, and hit resume. Something printed before my forms. It was a screenshot of a text thread between Marissa and Julian. At first, I thought it was work-related. There were names I didn't know and some reference to a district event. Then I read one line. Julian, tell me what your husband said about the routing review. Not the official version. The pillow talk version. My hands went cold. Not angry. Cold. The kind of cold where your body understands something before your brain finishes reading. Below that, Marissa had replied. He thinks he's getting promoted if the rollout goes well. He's so cute when he thinks he's important. Then Julian answered. You make boring men useful. That's a talent. I stood there with the laundry room light humming above me, listening to Marissa laugh downstairs at some video on her phone. I wanted to storm into the living room and demand an explanation. I wanted to hold the page in her face and watch her try to turn it into my fault. Instead, I took a picture of the page, folded it once, and slid it into the folder with my deck permits. That night, we ate grilled chicken and bag salad at the kitchen island. Marissa barely touched hers. Her phone was face down beside her plate, but her hand kept drifting toward it. Why are you being so quiet? She asked. I cut a piece of chicken slowly. Long day. She gave a small laugh without looking at me. Every day is a long day with you. I chewed, swallowed, and reached for my water. It was the first time I understood that not responding was no longer avoidance. It could be strategy if I stopped confusing silence with surrender. After Marissa went upstairs, I opened the printer app on my laptop. I didn't dig through her phone. I didn't need to. The shared printer account kept a queue history, and her tablet had been syncing attachments to it for weeks. Most of it was normal, lesson plans, committee agendas, a flyer for a wine and paint fundraiser at the school. Then I saw a PDF labeled Midwest Notes. I clicked it. It wasn't one of my documents, but I recognized the language immediately. Lane consolidation. Contractor delays. Branch overlap. July cost review. Phrases from my work calls. Not classified, not spy movie dramatic, but sensitive enough that a competitor could make smarter guesses about our routing strategy. At the top of the forwarded chain was Julian's email. Send anything he says before Friday. I have a call with the Ohio group Monday. I sat at our little desk in the upstairs hallway and stared at the screen while the house made its normal settling noises around me. The refrigerator clicked on downstairs. A car door shut somewhere outside. Marissa laughed softly in our bedroom, probably at another video, probably at another message. This was no longer just my marriage falling apart. My wife had let her mentor turn me into a source. The next morning, I called Tara from my truck outside a gas station because I didn't trust myself to sound normal inside the house. You busy? I asked. For you? Depends. Are you finally admitting I was right? I need the name of that attorney you mentioned. There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. What happened? I found things. Affair things. Yes. And work things. She didn't ask for details right away. That was how I knew she understood it was serious. I'm sending you Elaine's number, she said. Do not confront Marissa before you talk to her. I know. No, you don't. You're a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers sometimes warn people before they protect themselves. That one stung because it was accurate. Elaine met me 2 days later in a small office above a dentist near Grandview. She was about 50, with silver glasses, a yellow legal pad, and no patience for dramatic speeches. I brought printed screenshots, bank statements, mortgage documents, tax returns, and the folder that still had the HOA permit forms tucked behind evidence that had nothing to do with decks. I told her, I don't want revenge. Good, she said, clicking her pen. Revenge makes people sloppy. You want leverage and documentation. She separated everything into 2 categories, marriage and work. For the marriage, She told me to document the inappropriate relationship, gather financial records, open a separate checking account, and keep communication short and written whenever possible. For the work issue, she told me not to play detective and not to make accusations I couldn't support. Facts, she said, not feelings. Feelings matter to you. Facts matter in rooms where decisions get made. That sentence stayed with me. A week later, my promotion became official. Operations manager. More responsibility, better salary. The kind of title that looked clean on LinkedIn and messy in real life. Grant, my manager, called me into his office and shook my hand. He was 44, careful with his words, and usually so allergic to personal drama that he would walk away from a birthday cake if two coworkers argued near it. You earned this, he said. I should have felt proud. I did, somewhere under the nausea. I asked if I could close the door. Grant's smile faded. Everything okay? No, I said, but I'm going to keep it as clean as I can. I showed him only the work-related messages. Not the personal comments, not the hotel receipt, not the texts that made me feel like an idiot in my own house. Just the routing review request, the Midwest Notes file, and the forwarded email. Grant read them without speaking. His face changed slowly, like a dimming light. Finally, he said, "Do not discuss this with your wife yet." I laughed once because the sentence sounded insane. He looked up. I'm serious. We'll handle the business side. You handle your personal side. And Jacob? I'm sorry. That apology almost broke me more than the texts had. Not because it fixed anything. Because for the first time, someone looked at what had happened and didn't ask me to make it smaller. The dinner was Grant's idea before he knew any of this. A small promotion dinner, he said. A private room at a restaurant off the highway, some colleagues, spouses, family. Nothing too formal. Flatbread appetizers, old fashions, overpriced salmon, and everyone home by 9. I mentioned it to Marissa while she was unloading the dishwasher. She paused with a plate in her hand. Who's going? Grant, a few people from work, Mom, Tara. Spouses. Can I bring Julian? The plate clinked too hard against the stack. I looked at her over the cabinet door. Why would Julian come to my promotion dinner? She gave me the face she used when she wanted me to feel petty. Eyebrows up, mouth tight, as if I had disappointed her by being ordinary. Because he's been really supportive of my career, she said. And he knows how hard partners' careers can be on teachers too. Don't make it weird. There it was. The old pressure. If I objected, I was insecure. If I agreed, she got the room she wanted. I dried my hands on a towel and said, sure. She blinked. Really? You're right. No need to make it weird. For the first time in weeks, she smiled at me as if I had performed correctly. The week before the dinner, I became boring on purpose. I packed copies of financial records into a folder and drove them to Elaine's office during lunch. I opened a separate checking account and changed my direct deposit. I moved my grandfather's watch from our bedroom drawer to a safe deposit box because Marissa had once threatened to sell it during an argument and then claimed she was joking. I also booked a short-term rental near work for 30 days. It was in a bland apartment complex behind a pharmacy with beige walls, cheap blinds, a loud refrigerator, and one fork in the drawer. I stood in the empty living room after signing the paperwork and felt ridiculous for being comforted by it. But I was. Meanwhile, Marissa acted lighter than she had in months. She hummed while making coffee. She bought a new dress and left the shopping bag on the bed where I would see it. She asked whether Grant was uptight or fun after a drink. She asked if Tara was bringing anyone. She's coming alone, I said. Marissa smirked. Of course she is. I looked at her in the bathroom mirror. She was putting on earrings, head tilted, calm and pretty, and completely sure the world would arrange itself around her version of events. I wanted to ask when she had decided I was only useful, not loved. I wanted to ask whether she ever felt guilty walking through our front door. I wanted to ask if she understood what Julian was doing, or if being admired had made her careless. Instead, I said, dinner's at 7. The restaurant had Edison bulbs, fake exposed brick, and menus that listed farms nobody at the table had heard of. Our private room was separated from the main dining area by a sliding wood door that didn't block sound as much as it suggested privacy. My mom arrived early, wearing her church pearls again and a navy cardigan. Tara was already at the table when I walked in. She stood and hugged me tighter than usual. You okay? She whispered. No. Good. Honest answer. Grant came in with 2 people from my team and their spouses. Everyone made the usual small talk. Gas prices, kids' soccer schedules, a warehouse software update nobody wanted to discuss, but everyone mentioned anyway. My mom asked Grant whether I was eating enough at work, which made him laugh and made me feel 12 years old. Marissa came in 10 minutes late with Julian. She didn't say they arrived together. She smiled brightly and said, "Look who I found in the parking lot." Julian shook my hand with both of his. "Big night, buddy," he said. "Buddy." I smiled. "Glad you could make it." Marissa kissed my cheek in front of everyone. Her perfume was stronger than usual. Julian took the seat beside her before anyone could suggest otherwise. Dinner started normally. Flatbreads came out on wooden boards. Someone ordered Brussels sprouts because every restaurant in Ohio had apparently decided Brussels sprouts needed to cost $14. Marissa ordered wine before asking anyone else. Julian leaned back in his chair as if he owned the room, one arm draped over the back of Marissa's chair, just far enough to look accidental. My mom saw it. Tara saw it. Grant saw it and looked at his water glass. There was a family group text that had been quiet since Marissa walked in. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. "Tara, I hate him." I didn't respond. Grant made the first toast after the entrees were cleared. He stood with his glass and kept it short. "I just want to say we don't promote people because they make noise," he said. "We promote people because they solve problems. Jacob is steady under pressure, and this branch is better because he's in the room." Tara squeezed my knee under the table. My mom wiped the corner of her eye with a napkin. I stood halfway, ready to thank everyone, but Marissa rose before I could speak. "Oh, I have to say something," she said, lifting her glass. My stomach settled. Not dropped. Settled. As if it had been waiting. She smiled at the table. "I know everyone sees Jacob as this serious operations guy now, but I just want to say, at home he is still the same guy who once spent 3 weekends building a deck that looks as if a raccoon designed it." A few people laughed politely. My mom gave a small smile because she didn't know what else to do. Marissa kept going. "And honestly, this promotion proves that average men can still get lucky if they find the right people to make them look good." The room changed. The laughter came softer this time, thinner. One of my coworkers looked down at his plate. Grant's jaw tightened. Tara's hand left my knee and curled into a fist on her napkin. Marissa wasn't done. "I mean that lovingly," she said, placing a hand over her chest. "Jacob is steady, predictable, very useful in a crisis. Not flashy, obviously." Julian raised his glass. "To useful men," he said. That was the line. Not because it hurt the most, but because it made everything clear. He had said it before when he thought I would never see it. Now he was comfortable enough to say it in front of my mother. I stood up slowly. "Thanks, Julian," I said. "Useful is actually an interesting word choice." Marissa's smile twitched. "Jacob," she said softly, warning wrapped in sugar. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out 3 folded pages. Not a stack, not a dramatic binder, just 3 pages. "I wasn't going to do this tonight," I said. "But since my wife invited her career mentor to my promotion dinner, and since both of you decided to make me the joke, I think everyone deserves the context." The room went still. Marissa whispered, "Jacob, sit down." I looked at her. No. It was the first time I had said no to her in public and not softened it. I didn't read everything. I had no interest in turning the room into a spectacle. I read only what mattered. "Julian, tell me what your husband said about the routing review." Not the official version. The pillow talk version. Marissa's face went pale. I continued. "Marissa, he thinks he's getting promoted if the rollout goes well. He's so cute when he thinks he's important." Someone at the table inhaled sharply. My mom closed her eyes. I read the last line. "Julian, you make boring men useful. That's a talent." Julian set his glass down carefully. "This is inappropriate." I looked at him. "I agree." Then I folded the page back up. "Grant has already received copies of the work-related messages," I said. "Elaine, my attorney, has the rest. Marissa, I moved my direct deposit this morning. The joint card is still active for household expenses, but not for hotels, not for wine bars, and not for whatever Julian calls mentoring." Marissa's face went from white to red. "You are humiliating me," she said. For a second, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the distance between what she had done and what she believed was happening to her was so wide I could barely see across it. "No," I said. You booked the room. You brought him. You made the toast. I brought context. Julian pushed his chair back. This is a private matter. Grant finally spoke. Not entirely. 2 words. That was all it took for Julian to stop looking relaxed. The fallout wasn't cinematic. Nobody threw wine. Nobody shouted loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. That would have made the story cheaper than it was. Julian stood and adjusted his jacket as if he had remembered somewhere more important to be. I'm not participating in this, he said. Smartest thing you've said tonight, Tara muttered. He left the room, and Grant followed him into the hallway with the calm expression he used when a vendor had missed a deadline and was about to learn what documentation meant. Marissa stayed seated. Her eyes filled quickly, and she covered her mouth with her hand. I made a mistake, she said. Nobody asked which mistake she meant. The inappropriate relationship. The messages. The information. The toast. Getting caught. Maybe all of it. Maybe only the last part. My mom touched my sleeve. Come home with me tonight, she said. Before I could answer, Tara said, he has somewhere to go. Marissa looked at me then. What does that mean? It means I'm not going home with you, I said. Jacob, can we talk like adults? We can communicate through Elaine. Her mouth opened as if she had 12 arguments ready and couldn't decide which one would make her look best. I turned to Grant's empty chair, then to my co-workers, who looked deeply uncomfortable and tried not to stare at the pages in my hand. I'm sorry this happened here, I said. One of my team members, Andre, shook his head slightly. You're good, man. It wasn't applause. It wasn't a victory speech. It was one person letting me leave without pretending I had caused the fire. I paid for my mother's dinner, hugged her in the parking lot, and let Tara drive behind me to the rental. She insisted. My mom went home after making me promise to call. Her hands trembled when she hugged me, and I realized she wasn't just sad for me. She was remembering all the years she had stayed quiet in her own life and calling that survival. The rental smelled like new carpet and old air conditioning. The blinds rattled when the heat kicked on. In the kitchen drawer, there was 1 fork, 2 takeout napkins, and a bottle opener. Tara stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. This place is depressing, she said. It has walls. Barely. And nobody here calls me useful. Her face softened. Then it's a palace. After she left, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and listened to the refrigerator buzz as if it were trying to win a small engine contest. My phone lit up over and over. Marissa, you embarrassed me in front of everyone. Marissa, we need to talk like adults. Marissa, you made me look like a monster. Marissa, Julian manipulated me. Marissa, you owe me a private conversation. Marissa, your mother must think I'm horrible now. Marissa, please answer. I typed one reply. I am available through Elaine for anything related to the divorce or the house. Then I muted her. The next few weeks were ugly in a quiet way. Not reality show ugly. Paperwork ugly. Bank ugly. Mortgage ugly. The kind of ugly where you learn how many accounts 2 people can build a life around without noticing. Marissa tried to reclaim the story. She told mutual friends I had ambushed her. She told her sister I had become cold and controlling. She told my mother she had been lonely, which was the closest she came to an explanation. My mother called me afterward and said, I told her loneliness doesn't give you permission to break trust. That was the first time I heard my mother choose a hard sentence over a peaceful one. Elaine kept me focused. Don't argue about character, she said during one call. Argue about documents, money, and timelines. Marissa hated that. She wanted emotional court. She wanted a room where she could say I had neglected her by working long hours, and I could say she had mocked me in public, and everyone would decide who sounded more wounded. Elaine refused to let me enter that room. The actual divorce took 7 months. We sold the townhouse. The HOA got their wish, in a way. The unfinished deck became someone else's problem, then apparently a contractor's problem, then a listing photo cropped just high enough to ignore the backyard. Marissa moved into an apartment closer to her school. I kept my truck, my grandfather's watch, and the ugly patio chairs she always hated. We split the accounts according to the agreement. No dramatic last-minute confession changed anything. No one stood up in mediation and delivered a speech that fixed the damage. At work, Grant pulled me off the routing project temporarily. He told me plainly it wasn't a punishment. We need the audit clean, he said. No one benefits if there's even a question. I understand. I know you do. That's one of the reasons you're still the right person for the job. The company reviewed the information trail. Julian's consulting opportunity with the competitor evaporated after their compliance department was notified. He didn't face some dramatic public downfall. He didn't lose everything. But he lost the thing he seemed to value most, the ability to walk into rooms assuming nobody would question him. I saw him once after that, at a coffee shop near campus. He noticed me while waiting for his drink. For 1 second, his face did the math. Then he looked away. That was enough. Marissa's consequences were quieter, but probably heavier. Her school didn't fire her, as far as I know. Her friends didn't all abandon her. Life is rarely that clean. But people stopped laughing at her jokes about me. Tara told me later that at a baby shower, someone mentioned my promotion and Marissa changed the subject so fast, it was almost impressive. The last time I saw her in person was in the parking lot outside the mediator's office. It was late October, cold enough that the air smelled like wet leaves and exhaust. She looked tired, not evil. That surprised me. For months, I had pictured her as some villain in a story where I was the reasonable person who finally won. But standing there, holding a folder of signed papers, I realized she wasn't a mastermind. She was someone who needed attention badly enough to burn down the house and then cry about the smoke. She walked up to me slowly. "Do you hate me?" she asked. I thought about the dinner, the toast, Julian's glass in the air, my mother staring at her plate, Tara's hand squeezing my knee. The years I had laughed at my own expense because it seemed easier than asking to be respected. "No," I said. She looked almost relieved. "I just don't live there anymore," I added. "In the townhouse." I shook my head. "In that version of my life." Her eyes filled again, but I was no longer responsible for what she did with that feeling. I got in my truck and drove to the hardware store. I had no real reason to go there. The rental was temporary, and the little patch of space behind it was barely big enough for a grill. But I walked through the lumber aisle anyway. I bought boards, screws, a level, and a better saw than I probably needed. That weekend, I built a small platform behind the rental. Calling it a deck would have been generous. It was low, simple, and probably overbuilt because I had watched 6 tutorials and measured everything as if it were going to be inspected by a federal agency. It came out straight. On Sunday morning, I carried one of the ugly patio chairs outside and sat with a cup of coffee while the neighborhood woke up. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. A garage door opened. A kid rode a scooter along the sidewalk, the wheels making that hard plastic rattle over every crack. My phone stayed on the little table beside me. No emergency work call. No message from Marissa. No family group text trying to avoid the obvious. For the first time in years, I didn't check whether anyone approved of me. I had lost a marriage, a house, and the story I thought I was living. I had also lost the habit of shrinking so someone else could feel taller. That turned out to be worth more than keeping the peace. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.